The ranch sat at the edge of the high desert where the land stretched wide and quiet, and the wind carried old stories across dry grass and stone. Ethan Cole had lived there alone for many years, choosing silence over people and routine over memories. Each morning he rose before the sun fed his horses fixed fences and watched the light crawl slowly over the hills. He was not a man who expected surprises, and he liked it that way. That morning felt no different at first. The cattle were calm, the sky was pale, and the world seemed steady. But as Ethan walked toward the far fence line, he noticed something unusual. One of the horses lifted its head and snorted uneasily. The birds went silent. Then he heard a sound, a cry soft at first, then breaking into raw pain. It was the kind of sound that came from deep inside someone who had run out of strength. Ethan followed the noise toward the fence where the land met the old trail. There he saw her. She stood on the other side of the wire, barely able to stay upright. Her clothes were torn and dusty, her long dark hair tangled by wind and fear. Her face carried pain, not only of the body, but of something far deeper. When she saw him, she tried to speak, but her voice broke. "I can't take it anymore, it's torn." The words made little sense to Ethan at first, but the pain behind them was clear. This was not a woman asking for help lightly. This was someone who had reached the very edge. He moved slowly, keeping his hands open, showing he meant no harm. Years of living alone had taught him to respect distance and silence. Still, something inside him urged him forward. She told him her name was Naya. She was Apache raised by elders who taught her to walk strong and proud. But today she had been running for hours through brush and stone, fleeing something she could not yet say. Her foot with badly injured skin split and bleeding swollen and red. Every step sent pain through her whole body. The tear she spoke of was not shame, but flesh and strength and hope. Ethan helped her sit near the fence, offering water from his canteen. She drank slowly, hands, shaking eyes, never leaving the horizon, as if she feared something would come chasing after her. He asked who hurt her. She shook her head. Not who, she said, just life. Those words hit Ethan harder than he expected. They echoed old thoughts he had buried long ago. The rancher knew he could not leave her there. He could not turn away and pretend he had never heard that cry. Helping her would mean crossing lines he had drawn around his life for years. As he lifted the wire and guided her onto his land, he felt it. The moment where choice becomes fate. She leaned on him, trusting a stranger, because she had no strength left. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was the unthinkable for a man who lived to avoid complications. But as he led her toward the house, he realized something else. For the first time in years, the silence around the ranch did not feel empty. It felt like it was holding its breath. And somewhere deep inside Ethan Cole, a part of him that had been torn long ago, began to stir again. Ethan walked slowly toward the house with Naya leaning on his shoulder. Each step was careful, measured, and quiet. The land around them stayed still, as if respecting the fragile moment. When they reached the porch, Ethan helped her sit on a wooden chair. He brought a clean cloth and water from inside. The house smelled of old wood, coffee, and long, lonely mornings. Naya watched him closely. Her eyes were sharp even through pain. She had learned long ago that survival meant awareness. Ethan knelt in front of her and gently uncovered her injured foot. The skin was torn badly, swollen and red. She flinched and pulled back. He paused and looked up. "I will be careful," he said softly. She studied his face, searching for danger or lies. Finding none, she nodded. As he cleaned the wound, Naya spoke in a low voice. She said she had left her community days ago. There had been conflict, blame, and words that cut deeper than knives. She carried guilt that was not hers and fear that would not release her. She ran because staying meant losing herself. The land had carried her until her body could no longer keep up. Ethan listened without interrupting. He understood broken places, even if the stories were different. His own past lived in quiet corners of the house. Memories of lost choices, regret. When he finished wrapping her foot, he stood and offered food. She hesitated, then accepted. Hunger finally stronger than fear. They ate in silence. The kind of silence that is not empty but shared. Later, as the sun lowered, Naya asked why he lived alone. Ethan looked toward the window where light stretched across the floor. He said people leave or change. The land stays. Nia nodded. She understood that truth. As night approached, Ethan prepared a small bed near the fire. He offered her rest without expectation. No questions, no demands. Before sleeping, Nia spoke again. She said, "When I said it is torn, I meant more than my foot. Something inside me broke today." Ethan sat quietly by the fire. He said, "Sometimes things must tear before they can heal." The fire crackled softly. Outside, the wind moved through the grass, carrying stories old and new. That night, neither of them slept deeply. But for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt completely alone. Morning came gently to the ranch. Light slipped through the window and rested on the floor like a promise. Ethan woke early as always, but this time he paused listening. There was another breath in the house. Nia stirred near the fire, her face calmer than the night before. Pain still lived in her body, but fear had loosened its grip. She sat up slowly and thanked Ethan in a quiet voice. He nodded and put coffee on the stove. The simple routine grounded him. Yet everything felt different. After breakfast, Ethan checked her foot again. The swelling had not worsened. She would not be able to walk far for days. Nia looked outside toward the open land. She said, "The world feels too wide when you have nowhere to go." Ethan understood. He told her she could stay until she healed. No price, no timeline. The word surprised even him. As the day passed, Nia helped where she could. She cleaned herbs she carried in a small cloth bundle, plants taught by her grandmother for pain and strength. Ethan watched with curiosity and respect. She spoke of her people of songs sung at dawn, of stories that lived in the mountains, of responsibility and belonging. Ethan shared little at first, but as the hours passed, he told her about the woman he once loved, a life planned and lost to an accident on a distant road. After that, he had chosen land over hearts. Nia listened without judgment. Pain recognized pain. In the afternoon, clouds gathered. A sudden storm rolled across the plains. Rain struck the roof hard and fast. The sound made Nia tense. She whispered that storms reminded her the night everything changed, of shouting and fire and running. Ethan placed another log on the fire. He told her she was safe here. The walls were strong. She looked at him and asked, "Why help me?" He answered without thinking, "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing left." The rain slowed. The land drank deeply. As evening came, Nia stood using a stick to balance. She said tomorrow she must decide what comes next. Staying forever was not her path. Ethan felt a quiet ache. He had known this would come. That night, as the fire burned low, Nia sang softly, an old Apache melody without words. It filled the house with something sacred. Ethan closed his eyes. The torn places inside him felt less sharp. Outside, the stars returned, watching over two souls learning how to breathe again. The next morning arrived with clear skies and a cool breeze. Ethan stepped outside to check the fence line, while Nia rested. The land looked the same, yet felt changed, as if it remembered what had happened. When he returned, Nia was standing on the porch using a rail for support. Her foot still hurt, but strength was returning slowly. She told Ethan she dreamed of walking freely again, not away from pain, but through it. They spent the morning talking about choices. Nia said her people believed that every person carries a path. Ignoring it causes suffering. Facing it brings fear, but also freedom. Ethan listened closely. Her words stirred thoughts he had avoided for years. He realized how long he had been standing still. After midday, a truck appeared in the distance. Dust rose behind it like a warning. Nia stiffened. Her eyes darkened with memory. The truck stopped near the fence. A man stepped out calling her name. His voice carried authority and anger. Nia whispered that he was from her past, sent to bring her back, not to protect, but to control. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He walked toward the fence, standing between Nia and the man. The stranger demanded she return, said she belonged to the community and had shamed them. Nia spoke with quiet strength. "I belong to myself." The man scoffed and stepped closer. Ethan did not raise his voice, but his presence was firm like the land itself. He said she was injured and under his protection. She would leave only when she chose. The man glared, then turned away. The truck disappeared back into the dust. Naya exhaled deeply. Her hands shook. Ethan realized the unthinkable had already happened. He had chosen involvement over isolation, courage over comfort. That evening, Naya thanked him. She said he reminded her that strength does not always come from fighting. Sometimes it comes from standing still and refusing to move. As the sun set, Ethan felt something mend. Not fully healed, but no longer bleeding. The ranch no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt like a beginning. The days that followed moved slowly and gently. Naya healed little by little. Each morning she walked a few more steps without pain. Each evening she stood longer, watching the sky change colors. Ethan noticed how her presence reshaped the rhythm of the ranch. Meals felt warmer. Silence felt shared. Work felt lighter. They spoke often now, not just of pain, but of hope. Naya talked about returning to her people one day, not as someone broken or ashamed, but as someone whole. She said, I had to leave so I could remember who I am. Ethan told her he had built his life around not feeling, around safety and routine. But helping her had torn that open. He said, I thought being alone kept me strong, but it only kept me quiet. One afternoon, Naya asked to see the far hill, the place where the land opened wide. Ethan hesitated, but saw determination in her eyes. They walked slowly together, her hand on his arm, the earth firm beneath their feet. At the top, she stood tall, breathing deeply. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not cry. She said, I thought something inside me was torn forever, but it was only making space. Ethan felt the truth of that settle into his chest. That night, Naya told him she would leave soon, not running this time, choosing. Ethan nodded, though his chest felt heavy. He knew this moment was not meant to be held. Before sleep, she placed her hand over his. You helped me when I had nothing. Now I leave with myself. Ethan watched the fire burn low, knowing some goodbyes are not endings. They are repairs. Morning arrived softly, as if the land itself wished to be gentle. Naya packed her few belongings before the sun fully rose. Her movements were steady, confident, no longer driven by fear. Ethan stood on the porch watching. He felt pride and sadness woven together, the kind that comes when you know something mattered. Before leaving, Naya turned to face him. She said, when I came here, I said it was torn. I thought I was broken beyond repair. She placed her foot firmly on the ground. But pain taught me where I was still alive. She thanked him not with tears, but with strength, a warrior kind of gratitude. Ethan gave her supplies, food, water, and a horse trained for calm travel. He said, the land will guide you. Naya smiled. She said, the land brought me to you when I needed it most. They stood in silence for a moment. No promises, no longing words, only respect. Then she rode toward the horizon, not escaping, returning to her path. Ethan watched until she became part of the distance. Then he turned back to the ranch. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. He repaired fences with a lighter heart. He spoke aloud sometimes, letting sound exist. At sunset, Ethan sat on the porch. The wind moved through grass, carrying a familiar echo, a song without words. He realized the unthinkable was never helping a stranger. It was allowing himself to heal. The ranch was still quiet, but now it was alive.